Hey everyone, this is Chunkos and welcome back to the channel. Now today I'm going to take you on a tour of my toy collection room. Now it's taken me a lot of time and years to build out this collection, so I'm really excited to share it with you. I've got something for every collector in this room. I've got vintage toys and I've got some modern classics. Now let's have a bit of fun and let's take a look around and see what I've got. Okay, so let's start off with these first. So I've got some vintage Star Wars figures on the right. There's some rare ones in here. We've got some vintage collection figures at the top, and we've got some vintage Lego Star Wars figures, some rare Star Wars figures, Lego Star Wars figures in here, Vinylmations, and then there's a bunch of stuff that I've designed and made myself, which we'll have a quick look at those as well. So let's dive in here. So we've got collection of Vinylmations here, which are pretty cool. You get them in the Disney stores. I got them in Florida years and years and years ago. And yeah, they're kind of like blind box things and you don't know which one you're going to get. They're pretty cool. I enjoyed collecting those, so I've kept them. And then we got some vintage Star Wars Lego figures that I've got here, which is pretty cool. Yeah, we've got a gold C3PO here in the back. He's actually not the real gold C3PO. He's one that I made myself. I actually used to work at a print company and I printed the design on the chest and everything and made my own gold C3PO because yeah, I ain't got money for that. But yeah, I got a cool little collection here, and I've actually got some rare Lego figures here as well. So we've got Watto from, I think it's the first Pod Racer set. He's pretty rare. We've got the giveaway Silver Stormtrooper. He's also pretty hard to come by. I don't think that Darth Vader is actually particularly rare. I just liked him, so I put him in here. And we've got Han Solo in there for some reason. We've got vintage Anakin figures that I've put in these because I liked them. I don't think they're particularly rare. We've got Jango Fett. Now I know he's quite rare. He's quite expensive to get hold of now, and so is Little Boba. Those two are quite expensive ones to get hold of now. And we got, I forget how you pronounce her name, but is it Zamweesel or something like that? That's another one that is quite hard to come by. It's quite an old piece. We got a few more there. And then some little bits there. And we've got, it's not Jar Jar, it's one of the Gungans. Up here we've got a couple of extra Star Wars figures that I've got, and then Darth Donnie that I made myself. And then here's some of the ones that I made myself. So I've made my own, and there's prototypes here as well. So here's a prototype of Emperor Burns. So Mr. Burns is the Emperor. Here's a painted version that I did, and he's supposed to be based on the I Bring You Love episode. Where he glows from the nuclear waste, which I thought was quite funny. And then here is Darth Vader, which I'll show you some packaged versions that I made of him later. Yeah, so that was pretty fun. 3D modeled those myself, 3D printed them, painted them up, made them up. Super fun. Then I made Bart Simpsons as Bazooka Bort. Again, I'll show you later. I've got some carded versions of those that I made because I like making my own action figures. And we've also got Groundskeeper Willie as The Undertaker. That's another prototype that I've got there. So I've got some of my own personal prototypes, the stuff that I make here. A couple of extra figures that I've just sort of like accumulated. So that's that. And then on to this cabinet, we've got my vintage Star Wars figures. These are all the figures that I had when I was a child. So I've got a really good collection here. So we've got a couple of Last 17 in here as well. So these two are from Last 17. We've got a Vinyl Cape Jawa. He is actually not a real Vinyl Cape Jawa. He is a custom that I made myself. So again, I literally took an Obi-Wan Kenobi robe, cut it down, made it myself. We've got some R2 and R4 units here that are pretty well played with. I used to play with these when I was a kid. Absolutely love these figures. They are always my favourite, and they'll always hold a special place in my heart. But yeah, we've got some pretty cool ones. Luke. Yeah. And then this is the shelf that is my favourite shelf. So we've got the Bounty Hunters. Yeah. Can't go wrong with the Bounty Hunters. Darth Vader. Couple of these. In fact, I say that was my favourite shelf. This is my favourite shelf. This is the expensive shelf because we've got most of the last 17 here. So we've got Hanning Carbonite. There's a little Obi-Wan and Darth Vader from the Obi-Wan series for some reason in here. Some of these are my doubles here. We've got the A-Wing, we've got Anakin, and probably the most expensive one I've got in here is Yak Face. So we've got Yak Face here. He's quite hard to come by. And we've got Luke in Stormtrooper costume, and we've got Luke in his speeder outfit, in his Endor outfit. And then just because we've got Luke here, I've put Leia next to him because I thought, yeah, why not? They go together pretty well. Then we've got Barada. He's also a really hard one to get because he's all these are last 17. And we got a Man. Now he's pretty cool. I haven't got his staff, unfortunately. Maybe one day I'll pick up a vintage staff. And then we've got a couple of bits here. So these are all the extras I've got as well. So we've got an extra Barada here as well. A few other bits. Some of them are pretty well played with, some of them missing accessories. But yeah, these are the ones I used to play with when I was a kid. And yeah, kept them all these years. Now we'll go real quickly up to the top. So we've got some the vintage collection figures that I've collected over the years as well. We've got the droids ones. These are all modern. Really like these. These are the first. I've also got the first vintage collection figures here. So we've got Luke Skywalker, and we've got Darth Vader. These are all the sort of vintage collection 08. So these are all the original first releases of the vintage collection. I think they were around about 2010, I think these came out. But I've got the whole set there of those. I've kept those, and also I did sell quite a lot because I collected the vintage collection for quite a long time. I had quite a few of them, but I sold them over the years. But I kept these unusual ones, and these are the deleted scene versions. So we've got the deleted scene version of Luke, where he builds his lightsaber in Return of the Jedi. And then there's another deleted scene of, there's like a sandstorm, and then Princess Leia. I kept those because I thought those were really cool figures, and then I got some Mandalorian versions up there. So that's those. That's that section. And then I've got a lone Joe Strummer figure here because I'm a massive Clash fan. Love the Clash. There's another one they've brought out where he's holding a ghetto blaster type thing. So I'm probably going to pick that up at some point and put that together with my Clash Joe Strummer figure. So I'll have a little bit of a collection going on there. And then we'll move back, and I've got a life-size Stormtrooper. So this life-size Stormtrooper on a mannequin is from Shepperton Designs. So that's the guy, Andrew Ainsworth, who, I think it's Andrew Ainsworth is his name. He's the guy who basically not 3D mod. He vac formed the original Stormtrooper costumes. He didn't design them or anything, but he was the guy who basically manufactured them for the films and vac formed them all. Let's move up to here. So I've got a Master Replicas Stormtrooper blaster, which is super heavy. That's really, really heavy, that thing. I made a custom stand for it. I've got the original paperwork for it, but the stand never came with it. So I made my own stand for that. And then we've got some bits here. So we've got a Master Replicas Luke Skywalker lightsaber here. That's the original stand and everything. And then we've got Han Solo blasters, and these I made myself. So these are actually parts of the scope is an actual real World War II tank scope, which is what they used. The base gun is a Mauser replica by Dynix. There's a custom aluminium flash hider made on side, and also the bracket I made myself out of aluminium and some camera parts in order to hold the scope on that. On the other side, I also made this version myself, which is the Greedo Killer, which is based on the scene in A New Hope where he basically kills Greedo. That's why it's called the Greedo Killer. Now this has got an actual vintage flash hider on the end here, so that's actually a vintage part. The scope is vintage, but it's not the correct scope. The base blaster again is the same, it's a Dynix, and we've got custom aluminium brackets that I made in order to hold the scopes on, and then there's also a custom heatsink on the front as well, which is made out of aluminium. And then we've got some mini Master Replica lightsabers. I thought they were pretty cool, so I kept those. We've got a Medal of Yavin, and I've got a boxed and sealed Luke Skywalker Empire Strikes Back version of a mini lightsaber, and we've got a New Hope mini lightsaber. And then moving across, I've got a life-size Darth Vader helmet. That is by EFX, and I picked that up at Star Wars Celebration, I think in, not the last one that just went in London, but it was the one before that. I forget when that was, 2016 maybe? And then I've got a Hasbro Mandalorian helmet, which I actually use for cosplaying because I have got a Mandalorian costume, and yeah, I actually use that, and it's really, really good. It's quite comfortable to wear as well, so I use that. Now let's come down to this section. So this is probably the start of some of more interesting stuff I've got as well. So I've got a huge collection of Bandai SH Figure Arts Star Wars figures. So these are those guys, and they're super detailed, and they're really, really well articulated. I absolutely loved collecting these, but they're quite expensive to keep up with, so I kind of stopped. I forget what the last figure was I got. Maybe Anakin and Obi-Wan from Return of the Sith. I think that might be the last ones that I got. But then moving behind them, I got this, which is pretty, yeah, really easy to obtain these, but they're pretty cool. The prototype figures. This is a retro version that Hasbro brought out not that long ago. But here I've actually got vintage Star Wars figures. So I've got a huge vintage Star Wars collection, still carded. So I've got, and they're all, I'm pretty sure every single one I've got is Return of the Jedi. So I've got Greedo, Return of the Jedi. Behind this Stormtrooper somewhere, I've got Bib Fortuna as well. These are all vintage in these ones in the background. Actually, I say that these aren't. So I've got again a deleted scene of Lando. That's actually signed by Lando because I met him, which was really, really, really cool. He's out of all the people I've met from Star Wars, he's probably the most miserable, actually. But it was still cool to see him. So I've got that, and I've got a George Lucas Stormtrooper figure, because why wouldn't you? That is pretty cool. This is from the Saga collection, so it's one of the earlier versions of this. There has been remakes of that. And I've got a prototype Boba Fett, which was a Toys R Us mail away, I believe. I got this, and I had Jeremy Bullock, who was in the Boba Fett costume, sign that. Met him, probably the nicest guy I've ever met in my life. Here, let's move him out of the way. So here I've got a signed version of Hasbro's version of the Rocket Fire and Boba Fett. So again, this was something you could get on Toys R Us, and it's got, I'll try and move in there. It's got a couple of rocket firing mechanisms in the back. So that's sealed, and I also got that signed by Jeremy Bullock, who played Boba Fett. So yeah, that was really, really awesome. So those three are vintage, and these aren't. These are modern figures, but they're special to me because I've had them signed, and yeah, and just George Lucas figure. It's the only George Lucas figure I've got. And then moving across, these are all vintage, so we're going to start looking at all the vintage figures. Sorry about the light because it's quite reflective, but let's have a look. So we've got Forlom. I've got him. And I kind of like put these together almost as the bounty hunters. So again, we got Zuckuss, we've got Dengar, and we've got Boba Fett. He is vintage Boba Fett. There's a little bit of a crease in the corner, but never mind. And also we've got this really, really old Debenhams ticket stuck in the corner, and I could have peeled it off, but I didn't want to make any damage. And also I kind of like it because it just shows the fact that this figure came from an old Debenhams in the 80s. So that's kind of cool. And we've got Darth Vader. His bubble's a little bit yellowed. And we've got Stormtrooper. And we've got an Imperial Snowtrooper. Biker Scout. TIE Fighter Pilot. Emperor's Guard. So that's the vintage on this line. And then let's just have a look at the SH figure arts that I've got on this shelf as well. So we've got Darth Maul fighting Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon. And then we've got Anakin and Obi-Wan. We've got this really cool Boba Fett. These are all SH figure arts from Bandai, Japanese imports. Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader. And in this corner, tucked away, we've got a vintage AT-ST and a vintage X-Wing and a couple more vintage figures here. So we have got Squidhead, this is what they called them, Klaatu, we've got Ree down here, and somewhere in the background we've got Weequay there, and we've got Chief Chirper, and we have got Logray up here as well. And then if we move down to the middle, we have got Rebel Commander, Cloud Car Pilot, AT-AT Commander, Bespin Security Guard, and another Bespin Security Guard. He's hiding behind here. And then I just got a couple of extra bits that are like sort of hiding in this. So this is a Bandai model kit of the Millennium Falcon from The Force Awakens. That was pretty fun to build. Their model kits are really, really cool, but that's the only model kit I picked up. And there's a couple of the ships from the game, Lola. And then we got in the middle, we have got some more SH figure arts. So we've got Dooku, Obi-Wan, Jango Fett, and Mace Windu. This droid is SH figure arts. He came with the Captain Phasma, I think. This is Hasbro Chopper, and this is a Hasbro R4, which I thought was pretty cool. And then we've got Kylo Ren. This is a Mafex version of Rey. And then we've got Hasbro Indiana Jones, because why wouldn't you have an Indiana Jones in your collection? Luke and Rey, these are SH figure arts again. And we got Kylo Ren and some Stormtroopers and Captain Phasma from SH figure arts. This one I actually modded slightly by taking the cloak off of the first Hasbro Kylo Ren they brought out, and then I put it on the SH figure arts because I just thought it made him look a little bit cooler. And then some more, the last of my vintage figures carded, and we've got General Medine, got Lando Calrissian, we've got Lando Calrissian in his disguise, and then we've got, I'm trying to block the thing, we got Princess Leia and Bush outfit, Admiral Akbar, we've got Han Solo in his trench coat from Endor, we've got Chewbacca, one of my favourites, Luke Skywalker in his Jedi Knight outfit, And then we've got Obi-Wan Kenobi, that's also a good one, and R2-D2, who is my favourite character. There he is there. Okay, and the last two shelves over on this section, we've got a bunch of bits and pieces. So we have got a Boba Fett and Han Solo and Carbonite set. This was a San Diego Comic-Con exclusive. I think it might have been one of the first they made for the new 6-inch Black Series figures. This is going back quite a while now. Possibly 2013, I'm not sure. But it's round about that time. And then we've got a carded version when they started doing the carded versions for the 40th anniversary. That's not too old. I've got a Black Series Captain Rex. I should really take the sleeve off to show him off because he's pretty cool. I've got a Greedo, which is one of the first releases of Greedo for the Black Series. We've got the White Armoured Boba Fett, which is the first release of that. And then I've got, I'm not sure if this is the first release or not. It could be, but the Mandalorian in his first armour. Huge fan of the Mandalorian. And then we've got a R2-D2. That one's fairly recent. And then behind him I've got Darth Vader and Luke. Those are all fairly recent. And in these boxes, although I'm not going to get them out, there is, I think, an extra rocket firing Boba Fett in here, sealed, from Hasbro. And then there's some prototype Boba Fett white armors in here as well. So these are still in their boxes, and I've kept them there. We've got a vintage Wampa, a vintage X-Wing diecast toy. We've got the Star Speeders from Star Tours. I got those in Florida, which is pretty cool. In fact, I think they were from Florida. I don't think they were from Paris. Pretty sure they were from Florida. And then I got a bunch of Star Wars Legos that I had left over. We got Yoda, Princess Leia. I think this one's probably quite a hard. I'm not sure if they make these anymore because of the fact that she's in her bikini, but that could be one that's quite hard to get hold of now. And then moving over to these are interesting. These are rocket firing Boba Fett's. Now they're not real, they're not originals or anything, because these have got like a bit of a plasticky feel to them. A rubbery feel to them. But I picked these up a long time ago, probably in 2010 or something like that. But I thought they were really, really cool little sort of customs. And yeah, they've been in my collection for quite some time now. But yeah, really, really enjoy those. I really like those. Yeah, it's quite hard to stand up sometimes, but we've got a painted version. We've got an unpainted version. And then this one is, I think he's 3D printed because he's quite jangly. But again, I got this one probably like 10 years ago. So he's a really old sort of custom. Like, I mean, I know there's a lot of customs out there now and they're whatever, but this is sort of like a working rocket firing Boba Fett custom that is, yeah, I picked this up around the 2010s, so you know, these are probably coming up to, well, they're 15 years old probably now, these customs. So yeah, that's kind of cool. Quite like those are one of my favorites. And then if we come down here, we've got my Lacana collection. So I've started collecting Lacana. Really enjoy the Lacana cards. So I've got a load of extras here. I've got a bunch of Pokemon cards in the back here as well, but I don't really collect Pokemon. Really interested in Lacana. So I've got extras here. I've got a Enchanted Aladdin, which I pulled on one of my first, I don't know, 5 packs. I think I bought 5 packs and I pulled a Enchanted Aladdin, which Enchanted's are really, really hard to find. And yeah, I literally pulled that on my first sort of like couple of packs. So I think I bought 5 packs pulled an enchanted out of one of them, and I was like, whoa, and then I was hooked. I was like, I'm hooked to find another enchanted, and now I've got an entire binder here of Lacana, and we can have a quick skim through that now. But I can do another video on Lacana, but yeah, I've got a huge, but this binder is full. It is completely full of Lacana. So we can look at that another time and go through Lacana as a separate video. And then moving over to this. Now this is one of my favourite pieces. I made this box myself. So it's the Maz Kanata box from Force Awakens. I made all this out of an old pine shelf. Stained it all up. Got some aluminium bars. Weathered it all up. Some these are Chicago screws and things like that. This little piece here, surprisingly enough, is it's a piping nozzle for piping icing, but there was a little ring on that to lock it. But anyway, so inside here is a lightsaber, and it is the lightsaber from Force Awakens, Rey. I built this myself. There's quite a lot of parts on here. I used to make a lot of lightsaber parts. I don't make them so much anymore. I used to make them under the name Skywamper. But yeah, used to make lightsabers a lot over the last sort of 8 years ago. Really into lightsabers, and started building them and making my own parts and things like that. So this is the Rey lightsaber I built. There is electronics in here, and you can turn it on and put blades in it and everything, but I'm not going to do it because you have to take it apart and take kill keys out of it and stuff like that. But this actually is a fully working effects lightsaber, and it's a custom build. It's not a Hasbro or anything like that, but that's one of my prized possessions, and I keep that in that box. Absolutely love that thing. And then moving over is a big project that I started again a long time ago, probably going back into sort of like 2010s onwards. I started building my own life-size R2-D2. He is without his feet because I never got that far, and then I stopped the project, but this is as far as I got with the project. A lot of weekends and a lot of time spent on this, but yeah, he's really cool. I even built him with the panels that can open up and everything. His head is on a Lazy Susan, so it moves. His logic thingies also move and everything. Yeah, and like I say, the panels all open up on hinges. Inside, I intended to do electronics in him, but never got round to it. But yeah, that was super fun. He's one of my favourite pieces as well, for obvious reasons. He's my favourite character. R2-D2, he's my favourite character, so I had to build him. Let me know in the comments who your favourite character is. It doesn't have to be Star Wars, whatever your favourite character is in anything. But yeah, that's my R2-D2 project. One day I'll finish his feet, hopefully. But yeah, that's where he lives at the moment. That's where he stays. Maybe one day I'll be able to get some electronics in him as well. And then we move over to this side of the room, and we have got a poster from Star Tours. So it's the original Star Tours, before they changed it all. And this is a poster I picked up in Disneyland Paris. And yeah, I actually bought this in Paris, in Disneyland, and yeah, that's pretty cool. I got a load of other posters, but I just don't have the space to show them off. But I have got a load of vintage Star Wars posters as well. And this is a Star Tours figure line they did, where it was Disney and Star Wars mashups. So I got these out and put these up on the wall because I thought they were really cool, and I love mashups. And you'll see when I show you some of the figures that I've made myself. I'm really into sort of like crossover mashups. And yeah, so we've got Huey and Dewey and Louie as Jawas. We've got Donald Duck as a stormtrooper. We've got Minnie as Princess Amidala. We've got Mickey as Anakin. We've got Donald Duck as Darth Maul. A lot of Donald Duck crossovers. Donald Duck as Han Solo. We've got Luke as Jedi Luke. And we've got Pluto as R2-D2. We've got Princess Leia as, Minnie Mouse as Princess Leia in a bush costume. Donald Duck again as Han Solo in Carbonite. And we got Pete as Boba Fett. And then next to those, I've got some builder figures that I got from Star Tours ride in Florida. This is going back probably, again, similar sort of time, 2013 I think I made these, but that was pretty cool. I think they still do that over there. And then I also picked up these at the same time, so Muppet Star Wars crossovers. So I have Kermit and Miss Piggy as Luke and Leia. We've got Animal, and I forget this guy, is it Scooter, as Boba Fett and Lando Calrissian. Oh, and then there's the pig as Han Solo and Carbonite. And then we've got Beaker and Dr. Bunsen, Honeydew as C-3PO and R2-D2. And then one of my favourites up there is we've got Rizzo the Rat as Yoda. And then to top off some of the Star Wars stuff, because we're going to start moving out of Star Wars a little bit now, here's my autograph collection. So we've got Peter Mayhew as Chewbacca. We've got Jeremy Bulloch, Boba Fett. And then we've got Princess Leia, Carrie Fisher. That was a really cool one. Billy D. Williams as Lando. And then we have Kenny Baker as R2-D2. And then we have Anthony Daniels as C-3PO. And I met all of these guys. Really, really cool. And then we move over. I got some vintage bits on the wall here. So I got some vintage Space Precinct figures. As a kid, surprisingly, I actually enjoyed the Space Precinct program. I actually quite liked it. And these are figures from when I was a child. Had them, didn't open them. These are reactions. So these are Transformer reactions from Super 7. Me and my son really like Transformers, so we collect Transformers. There's not very much Transformers in here because all the Transformers are in my son's room. Same with a lot of Turtles stuff that we've got as well. And then these are remakes of the retro by Hasbro Star Wars figures, so I've got a couple of those as well. And then up here we have got Turtles. So these are remakes. These are the remakes that they started bringing out for the Turtles. These aren't vintage, but they were so cool. It's like they got to go on my wall because as a kid, huge Turtles fan. I had all the Turtles, the lair, the blimp, everything. Yeah, so absolutely loved Turtles as a kid. So brought these back out. And I was like, I've got to have them. So in fact on that, let's move on to the turtle shelf. So we've got a turtle shelf here. I've got a vintage turtle Michelangelo plushie, vintage key ring, and all these figures here are vintage Turtles figures. So we have got vintage Michelangelo on our vintage pizza slinger, vintage Donatello hanging off the side of it. These are vintage figures as well. So Ace Duck. Those are Super 7 reactions that I opened, displayed. We got a vintage Samurai Leo, vintage Slash, vintage Surfing Mikey. Yeah. Croc. And then these are BTSX, I think they're called. So they're relatively modern. Some other bits here. I've got a load of Super 7 Ultimates, but they're in my son's room because he's a massive Turtle fan, so we've displayed them in his room. We'll show those in another video. Moving over, this is my little Toxic Crusader section. So I got Toxie from Super 7. He changes colour and glows in the dark. I don't know if he glows in the dark, but he reacts with the sun, so I think he goes red in the sun. And then we've got a pop vinyl that I got for Christmas recently. vintage Dr. Killamoff and a vintage Toxie, and a little mini Toxie that I made and 3D printed and painted. So we'll show you some of those bits in a minute, but that's another one that I made myself. We got some little Mad Balls, Bazooka bubblegums, which will make sense in a minute. Moving over to here, so here is some bits that I 3D printed and modelled myself again. So this is a glow-in-the-dark turtle figure. He actually glows in the dark, and I called him a glow ninja. I'll show that off. I've got some packaged versions of those, and then 3D. Actually, this is a resin pour I made of so these are actually poured in resin with swirled dust for oozeballs. Bunch of accessories there for turtles. So that's the turtle shelf. I'm thinking maybe we go down next. So here's a bunch of stuff. This is quite an eclectic shelf. So let's start off. We've got Pogs. Who doesn't remember Pogs? Okay. So we've got Pogs. I got Slammers, Pog Slammers, old school fun. Yeah, these are all full as well. The Pog containers, I got 1, 2, 3 of those, and I got a Chupa Chups one. So there's some Chupa Chups and Slammers instead. Got metal Chupa Chup Slammer in there. Coming over here, this is new. Got this for Christmas. It's a Back to the Future tech deck. Look like the hoverboard. That was really cool. We've got some vintage Simpsons. Huge fan of the Simpsons. I've made my own Simpsons figures, which you saw earlier, which was prototypes for some of the stuff that I'll show you in a minute when we move up this shelf. But yeah, we've got a Radioactive Man comic in the background, and we got these vintage Mattel Simpson figures, and you can change out these cards as well, so they say different things. But we've got Homer, Bart on his skateboard, we've got Nelson. This is a little plastic vintage figurine, he doesn't move. We've got Lisa, we've got Maggie and Marge, and then we got some other bits and pieces here. And I picked these up from a car boot sale a couple of months ago, actually, or flea market as they're known in the States. And these are Clockwork wind-up Homers. And this one, he's actually holding the three-eyed fishlet. I thought they were really cool, so I picked those up. And yeah, you wind them up and then he moves and stuff. It's pretty cool. And then if we move down here, we've got some Z-Bots. If you remember Z-Bots, I forget who made Z-Bots. I think it was Micro Machines, Galoob. And then I've got Wrestlers in My Pocket by Monsters in My Pocket. So they went through a massive phase of making loads of different versions of monsters and creatures that kids put in their pockets and take to school. And what fun that was, taking all these little pieces of crap to school with you. That is literally the pinnacle of anyone's childhood, I think, who was into toys and collectibles and things like that. You just had a pocket full of Pogs and monsters and crap, bubblegum. And it was fun times. But yeah, I've got a collection of these. Keep these guys. I also package them up and resell other ones as well on my website, chunkos.co.uk, if you're interested in any of the bits. I sell vintage toys and gifts and things like that. And then moving down here, we've got some Go-Go Crazy Bones. We've got some more Monsters in My Pocket from different series. And then we got some mini Boglins. They were really fun. Boglins, loved those. Boglins in my pocket. These are Monster Aliens in My Pocket. So got a few of those. They're really cool actually, because if you look on the back, they got these like heat changer things. And if you warm it up, it tells you what their power is. So this one, if you rub it, gives you a little logo. I think it gives you their power. And then we got Mighty Max. Now Mighty Max was a lot of fun. I used to collect these a lot. I also actually as a kid had Polly Pocket, so I'm not going to lie about that. I had Polly Pocket, although I don't have any of that anymore. But yeah, Mighty Max, had a lot of Mighty Max, and these are some of the bits that I still have. And the interesting fact about Mighty Max as well is it was all made by Bluebird Toys, which was also made in Swindon. So if I pick one of these up, it'll probably say here Bluebird Toys 1994. It doesn't say Swindon. Some of these actually say Swindon on the back, and that's my hometown. That's where I'm from, is Swindon. Does it say on here? So that's pretty cool that, like, you know, Mighty Max was made in my town. Where is it? There you go. You can see it there. Swindon, England, 1992. Used to collect Mighty Max, and yeah, made in my hometown. Love Mighty Max. Always, always, always remember the amounts of Mighty Max I had. And I'm probably not going to get them out, but there are some of the bits in here as well. So there are the little Mighty Max characters in here. Oh, here he is. Here he is. Little Max. See? That little Mighty Max. There he is. They're in here. So I need to sort that out. And then moving down here, we've got some Gundams. So I've got some vintage Japanese Gundams. I got some Muscle Men bits, and some dinosaurs in my pocket. This guy here is Andy from CBeebies. So my son was really into Andy's dinosaur program. I forget what it was called, but it used to go back in time and then teach you about dinosaurs. And this came from a CBeebies magazine. My son's outgrown it, but I'm keeping that because it's kind of cool, and it'll, like, when he's older, it'll be a bit of nostalgia for him. So I'm keeping that for him, and that's why he's in my collection. And then we've got a mask figure, which I think is from Burger King. Let's see if I can find it here. There we go, from Burger King. And we got this guy, who I don't know if you remember, was also from Burger King. He was sort of like the Burger King mascot guy for, like, Happy Meals back in the day. He's pretty awesome. Got him. So a bit of nostalgia there for the old school Happy Meal Burger Kings. Or Kids Meal, sorry. Can't call them Happy Meals, can you? Kids Meal. Right, so we'll move up on, so we'll go past the turtle shelf again, and we'll move up onto our third shelf. So here we have Street Sharks. Who remembers Street Sharks? Now this is a little collection of Street Sharks I got here. Picked these up not that long ago at a Comic-Con, actually. We've got, so he's got his mouth guard, which is really, really cool. Is it Slamu? So we've got Slamu, Streets, I forget his name, and then we've got Ripper, and we've got the iconic classic hand puppet with the Vin Diesel advert. If you remember that, you know what I'm talking about. So that's my Street Sharks bit. Really, really like Street Sharks, actually. My son's got a couple of my Street Sharks as well that he plays with, because he really likes them as well. The rubbery kind of like texture on them, and yeah, he's really into sort of like monsters and things at the moment. And I got He-Man. This is literally the only He-Man I've got. I used to be into He-Man when I was a kid, but I haven't really revisited any He-Man. But this is a Super 7 He-Man on here. He's not vintage, but he is on a vintage Battle Cat. And then we've got a bit of a Godzilla collection here. So yeah, it's a bit of Super 7 Godzilla, bits and pieces there. My old iPod back there, DS, Brooklynite comic. That's interesting because that's by Jay-Z, and you could only get those at a Nets basketball game. I've got those, and then on here I've got pinned up some Crazy Bones I repackaged for myself to display. Super Creepies. I actually sell these on my website, so I sort of like repackage some of these up and like refurbish them and clean them up and package them up, and then I sell a couple of them on my website. And then here we go, Chunkos. So here's some of the Chunkos bits that I made. Here is a midlife eco-anxious turtle who is being choked by his own plastic. It's kind of interesting, weird take on it, but that was just a little super fun kind of little project I made. He's resin poured with various swirls in him. Here is the Glow Ninja. So he is actually a glow-in-the-dark turtle figure that I 3D modelled and 3D printed, and then packaged him up. Custom packaging made by myself. And then, as you saw earlier, the prototype of Darth Vader. So here he is all packaged up. Darth Vader, that was a really fun project that I did where I made my own, yeah, sort of vintage looking Star Wars Darth Vader with a Simpsons twist. And he's got his little lightsaber in there, you can see that, which is based on the reactor rod that goes down his back. He's pink because of he has a pink car. He in some episodes he wears a pink shirt and tie and things like that, and also he loves pink donuts. So that's where the pink comes from. And then we've got foil accents on this as well, which I made. Yeah, really enjoyed that project. So yeah, you can actually get, I've still got a couple of those available on the website, chunkos.co.uk. Yeah, I've also got a couple of those still. And then if we move on to my Transformers collection. So we recently unboxed these. My Clone from Takara. These are Japanese imports. These, I actually don't know what the name of the range is, but these were some blind boxes as well, which were Japanese imports, which is really cool. Those are also on our Blind Box Mayhem video, where we unbox and go through those. And then this is a 86 Transformer Hot Rod figure from Hasbro. And yeah, I know a lot of people sort of have a bit of a weird feeling of Hot Rod, because obviously he was supposed to replace Optimus Prime, and Optimus Prime will always be, you know, one of the best characters, if not the best character. But I do also really like Hot Rod. He's one of my favourite characters as a kid. I absolutely loved Hot Rod, so yeah, I had to have him and keep him in the collection. And then I've got a Masterpiece, but that's actually a knockoff. I believe that's a knockoff. I picked him up secondhand, so I'm pretty confident he's a knockoff. And also we've got Prow. I'm pretty confident he's also a knockoff. But they're really good, to be fair. They're super cool, even as a knockoff. They're like really good quality. And then I've got the Netflix recent Soundwave, which is quite cool. Picked him up a couple of years ago. Soundwave again is one of my favorite characters. And then I've got I'm not sure if this is actually vintage. I think it might be a vintage remake. I'm not really sure, but it is marked on here like with an 80s stamp. So I don't know if the remakes were stamped with a more modern year, but I picked this up at a Steam fair, so where they have like steam engines and tractors and stuff like that. And there was a guy who had a bunch of stuff and just a bucket of toys, and I found him in there and I was like, whoa, I remember having that as a kid. And I asked him, how much do you want for it? And he said 20 pence. And I was like, I can't turn down a Transformer for 20 pence. So he came home with me, and yeah, and literally walked around with him. He's got a clip on him, so I was literally walking around this Steam fair with him clipped to my belt. So people probably thought, what a loser, but I didn't care. And then we've got Bucky O'Hare. I remember Bucky O'Hare from my childhood, so I've got a couple of those. These I picked up a couple of years ago for my collection, and yeah, I used to love Bucky O'Hare. I used to love that program, and yeah, was a big fan. I've got a Flying Scotsman Thomas, and the reason I've got this as well is because my son was, when he was a lot younger, was really into the Wooden Thomas stuff, and we've got a huge Wooden Thomas collection that he's got that we'll be keeping and putting away for him in the future. But this one's on here because he is one of the sort of like most expensive rare ones to get. And he is in pristine condition. There is like not one scratch, scrape or dent on this guy. He is in amazing mint condition. So I was like, he's got to go on the shelf. So that's why he's there. And then moving on to my little wrestling figures collection. Not a huge collection, but some of the characters that I remember from my childhood. So Stone Cold, used to love the Attitude Era. Undertaker, Sting, huge Sting fan. Mankind, absolutely love Mankind, and who doesn't love The Rock? So yeah, these are Mattel remakes, recent remakes. Apart from the Undertaker, he is vintage. And then off the back of that, I did my own little mock-up of my own little figure again, where I mashed up the groundskeeper Willie with the Undertaker. So we have my own figure of the groundskeeper. There he is, made by Chunkos. Another super fun project. Absolutely love doing that. Hand painted. He's actually, I don't have any of these anymore available. These are actually sold out. These, like, people really liked these. But that's the only one I've got left. And I'm like, I kind of want it for my own collection, so I've kept him. So he's the only one I have left. And then I have a couple of prototypes as well. So I have these sort of like unpainted prototypes. So perhaps I'll, yeah, I don't know. Perhaps I'll find some time to paint some more up one day and, yeah, get a couple more released. But yeah, really enjoyed that. And then we got a Ghostbuster figure. I don't have much Ghostbusters, but I will probably build the Ghostbuster collection out at some point. Beetlejuice figure that I picked up randomly, and then we'll move up. We have got Bazooka Bort, another figure that I made myself. So you saw the prototypes early on in the video, and that is Bazooka Bort. So he's based on the old Bazooka Joe comics strips that used to get in the bubblegum Bazooka bubblegums, and he's sort of like a mashup between, like, you know, I guess back in the day he was sort of like the Bart Simpson. So I kind of like mashed up the modern sort of Bart Simpson, you know, our sort of like Bart Simpson with sort of like their older version of what the Bart Simpson would be for them, back in sort of like the 50s or whatever year Bazooka Joe was going. And yeah, so it's like a bit of a mashup. There's also the reason he's called Bort is because of the fact that there's an episode where they go to Itchy and Scratchy Land, and there's that little gag where he can't find his name on the number plates, and he can only find Bort. So yeah, there's a couple of little sort of like nods to Simpsons and Bazooka bubblegum in this. Another fun project. I don't think I have any of those available anymore. I think this might be the last one I have. But yeah, again, absolutely loved making these figures, and I mean, if you want me to kind of like talk through some of these bits, of any particular parts of this collection that you'd yeah, like to see more of, then I'm happy to make another video based on them. And then sort of like we're getting to the last bits now. So we've got up here, we've got a vintage AT-AT Walker. He's not got all his bits, but I've got the original box for him, and I've got a sealed pack that is this bit here. Now includes 10 accessories for action figures, and that is that sealed Kennebot bag there. Yeah, cool. Artwork on that box is awesome. So I've displayed that up there. So yeah, that's sort of that. And then we move over. I've got a life-sized Yoda. I picked this up quite a long time ago. I think it's pretty cool. I've modded him out a bit, so like some leaves and things. He's got his little lamp there, if you remember his lamp. Well, actually it's Luke's lamp, I think, isn't it? And he steals it from him. And then before we get onto the lightsaber cabinet, let's move up to here. So I've got Walking Dead figures. Used to be massively into Walking Dead when it came out. Absolutely loved it. So I've got some Walking Dead figures. So season 1 and season 2. We've got the bicycle girl up there as well, hiding in the corner because I ran out of space. And then we've got one Ghostbuster figure. That's a modern remake of the Ghostbusters, but I will be building out a bit more of a Ghostbusters collection in the future, because it used to absolutely, and me and my son really like the real Ghostbusters cartoon, so we watched that together. Absolutely love it. So we will be building out a bit more of a Ghostbuster collection. And then we come to my cabinet. So this is a custom cabinet that I made. It's a IKEA, I think is it Detolf? And then when I used to work at printers, I printed logos and backing artwork directly onto the glass. So this is actually printed onto the glass. It's not vinyl or anything like that. We had a big flatbed printer, and I actually printed these cool pieces of artwork to it. And so if we actually, let's open this up and then let's have a look at my lightsaber collection. And this is pretty much the last section now of my collection. So we've got some vintage camera flashes here. So these are old vintage camera flashes from I think the 1920s, and there'd be a bulb that would go in top of there, and then that's what they used as a lightsaber base. But I've got quite a few of those. So that's vintage, that's vintage, that's vintage as well. So those are all vintage ones that I intended to make into lightsabers, but haven't really got round to it. I've only put the cards into them. I haven't put any grips or anything inside these, so they're still full vintage versions, and I probably won't get round to making them, so they'll probably just stay like that now, even though I have got all the parts to make them into vintage sabers. But I don't know, maybe one day I'll get back into it. Got some vintage pop rivets that I intended to use for the grips and things like that, and the backs. And then we've got these. So this is a vintage lightsaber, and it's got all vintage parts. So if you know your lightsabers or anything like that, and I can do another video where I dive a little bit more deeper into this, but this is from an old vintage 70s calculator, which is exactly what they used in the film, and it's that sort of like it's used to magnify the numbers in a calculator. So that's that. The rest is, this is a vintage flash handle, and then even the grips are vintage for the a guy in the lightsaber community called Calfet. He found a bunch, and I picked those up from him. And then there is a vintage, even though this isn't the accurate version anymore, because it's been found out that there's two, it was held on by two rivets, but I've kept this anyway because there's a vintage D-ring clip on the back here, which is from some old camera equipment. So that's my fully built A New Hope vintage lightsaber. And then we've got A New Hope Darth Vader saber. This is a really old one from, I think, Park Sabers, and so it's not a vintage or anything like that. It's a remake, but it's really cool. There's no electronics in that one. Really like that one. And then I got some display bases that I made out of acrylic for myself. These actually illuminate up, so perhaps one day I'll get these out and illuminate them up and show them off. But yeah, and then there's some display stands that I haven't got round to putting the display stands on yet, but I've got a Darth Vader signed plaque when I met him in person, but I haven't put that on there yet, so I will probably dig that out at some point and put that on. And then I got some Obi-Wan Kenobi ones. So here's a custom plaque I made for my sabers. So this one's got the Obi-Wan plaque, and we've got the Obi-Wan lightsabers. This one here is a Parks saber one, so it's an old Parks saber one, but it's got electronics in. This is a Roman props version. That's static, that's got nothing inside it. And then if we move down here, we've got my Empire Strikes Back builds. So we've got a vintage Kobold. Those are really expensive and hard to get, well, not really hard to get hold of, but they're really expensive. We've got a vintage D-ring that I had modified. So this is from a different, I probably got it further down here, but this is from a different version of a Kobold D-ring, and the holes aren't in the right place, so I had it machined to have this notch put in like the original, and I was intended to put it on the, this is a vintage D-ring from an old vintage bag, and I was intending to put that on the end of this vintage Empire Strikes Back build, which I never got around to doing it. But these are vintage grips again by the same guy, vintage screws from old, I forget where they came off, some old vintage camera equipment again, and then an old vintage computer card, which was an Otis elevator board, and yeah, vintage Empire Strikes Back build that I was in the process of building. And then this is a effects one, so this is not a vintage flash gun. This is a replica, but it's really heavy because it's got all the electronics in there and crystal chambers and all that sort of stuff that I built myself. Yeah, that's really heavy, and I'll probably do a different video because like you go into more depth in those. Yeah, that's that. And then this plaque is a space for Mark Hamill's autograph. So I met him at Star Wars Celebration a while back. I think it was 2016, I think it was. I got his autograph, and I haven't applied it to this yet, but yeah, that's something I'll do at some point. And then here we've got a thermal detonator. This is really heavy, fully metal. You can put electronics in this, but I haven't yet. So that's there. We've got my Return of the Jedi lightsaber. This has got electronics in, so you can turn this on and put blades in it and everything. I think that was from Solo's Hold, so this is going back a while as well. And I made my own custom sort of like little stand thing based on Jabba's, the platform that Luke stands on and he goes down into the Rancor pit. So it's the cutouts are based on that, on the vintage Jabba figure, I think. So yeah, there's kind of a bit of a subtle nod to Jabba's palace in that. And then we've got these again, some more plaques that I haven't applied yet, but we've got Darth Vader's saber from Return of the Jedi. I think this is I forget who made that one. That's got electronics in it. And this is a Luke Return of the Jedi. These all light up, the buttons. This has all got electronics in it as well. Yeah, I forget who made those, but they're really cool. And then I got a couple of extra little misc bits here, down here. So I've got this vintage flash gun, which is the model for Yoda's lightsaber. There's a big backstory around that as well. And then there's a vintage wheel from a Contash model kit. So yeah, I used to sort of like get all the bits and pieces and things that was made. What else have I got? That's what the Jawas used to disable R2. And that's a old flame torch. These are the calculators that I was telling you that they used the bubbles for the lightsaber handles in A New Hope. Can't get it out without making a mess, but there is a BB gun back here, which is the gun that Luke grabs using the Force to shoot Jabba the Hutt, and then he falls down into the Rancor pit. So that's the blast, that's the base. I think it's an Italian BB gun, but that's vintage as well. So I've got that, and I intended to make that into the blaster, but never got around to it. And then some extra little bits down here as well. So some vintage custom lightsabers I built. So this is from an old vintage camera flash, and I put some bits and pieces to try and make it look like a bit of a little mini Padawan lightsaber. And then this one's a old vintage flash gun where I put some parts on again, some vintage bubbles from a different calculator and things like that, some old vintage wires that I ripped out of old camera equipment and things like that. And yeah, to make some custom vintage. This one's an interesting one. So that's like a vintage Graflex top, and then a vintage Hayland flash bottom, and then some other vintage parts that I put on. So I intended to make some vintage figures. So yeah, that concludes the tour. That is everything. I hope you've enjoyed it, but yeah, we'll have a quick look. This is the collection of the room. Yeah, if you've enjoyed it, like and subscribe, and put in the comments if there's anything you'd like me to show off in more detail. So thanks for watching, see you next time.